psychology of 90s babies. Let's go ahead and figure out what makes me tick. Let's figure out what a millennial. Let's go ahead and start this over. 1 second. All right, let's go ahead and figure out the psychology of 90s babies. Let's see why millennials are the way that they are and why I'm just so disgusted by them. I really hate a millennial. I hate what they've done to us. Fucking Pokemon having ass shit. All right, just kidding. All right, let's see what this is all about.
What's strange about people born in the 1990s? They remember a world that doesn't exist anymore. They played outside until the streetlights came on, but also remember their first AIM screen name. They used encyclopedias for school projects, but also downloaded music on Napster. They're the last generation who had a childhood.
That's true. We do remember a world pre-internet, and that was a beautiful thing, but I don't know. Like it's a cool thing that we did recall what it was like to grow up without internet, without this constant like barragement or access to information. That's a novel thing. It is really cool. But dude, we just sound like the next generation of boomers. It is pretty bad. I'm so like I see it online all the time. I remember not very not but the world, the internet, the kids fucking around now, that bullshit. There's no bikes outside of homes anymore. Life is destroyed. No, it's just changed. Even in the 90s, you know, imagine people that grew up in the 30s and the 50s thinking like these kids nowadays, they're watching their cartoons and shit and it's just destroying them. We always see this. It's cyclical. Time is a flat circle and people are always complaining about shit. I don't know. I like having my experience, but I will not have rose tinted glasses on and act like the way that I grew up was necessarily better. I do think there was a lot of good that came from it. Socially, I will say that socially, I feel like this older generation is more equipped to handle tough social situations, awkward social situations, all that, because in the 90s, socially, we had to reach out and, you know, if we wanted to hang out with our friends, we actually had to call their house and talk to their fucking parents. And we had to have that awkward social exchange. Kids nowadays, they can just hit somebody up on Messenger, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, fucking Snapchat, what have you. They never have to equip themselves with those social interactions or changes. Now, they are much more equipped to handle the fallout of what the internet age has brought, and that is essentially a lot more scams, a lot more catfishing profiles. They are much more equipped to handle stuff like that than we are, because they grew up in it and they kind of understand now the ins and outs, what to look for, what's too good to be true, to suspend disbelief enough but not all the way. Like, they understand that. That's a skill that they have built up, as opposed to the skills that we have built up are a little bit different. So yeah, I like the fact that I have experience with the world pre-internet, but that does not make me more than anybody else. That's just that is an experience that I can share with others and help them navigate socially through things that I had to learn how to navigate through.
Without smartphones, but came of age with social media. And that split, that created a psychology researchers are calling 90s kids syndrome. If you were born between 1990 and 1999, you occupy a space in history that will never be repeated. You're not quite a millennial. You're definitely not Gen Z. You're the bridge between two incompatible worlds: Cartoon Network and YouTube, Blockbuster and Netflix.
Hey, I enjoy all those things. Fucking, it was cool to have Cartoon Network growing up. Not knocking that. I fucking love my YouTube though. You know, that's the thing that we forget, bro. That's the thing. Like, we grow up and we enjoy different things. No matter what, I don't want to go back to those times, because back then, yeah, I had Smash Bros. But now I'm just smashing my bros. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get to enjoy things as adults, chat, that we didn't get to enjoy as kids. because kids can't consent. You can't enjoy smashing your bros back. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm just kidding. I'm making a joke about SA because I was definitely SA'd whenever I was a kid. That's just how I deal with awkward situations. That's besides the point. But what I'm saying here is they just changed. Blockbuster was fun, but now I can just, it is very convenient to find a cool show that I know that I want to watch with my wife and just immediately click something on my phone and have it. The convenience is fine. Both worlds are fine. Now, I do think, and I'll let it play a little bit more and then I'll pause it again and I'll go over it. I do think there is another issue that us older generation can help the younger generation learn, and that is delayed gratification. All right.
Playing outside and playing online. And here's what nobody tells you. That split childhood created adults who are simultaneously nostalgic for simplicity and fluent in complexity. And it's affecting your mental health in ways you probably don't even recognize. Picture this. It's 1998. You're 8 years old. Saturday morning means waking up early for cartoons. Scooby-Doo, Rugrats, DuckTales. You pour yourself a bowl of sugary cereal and sit cross-legged on the floor in front of the TV. No tablets, no streaming services, no on-demand anything. If you missed it, you missed it. And somehow, that made it matter more. After cartoons, you head outside. Not because your parents told you to, because that's what kids did. You played hide and seek until dusk. You climbed trees.
That is pretty crazy because that is crazy to think about. Just because it was okay back then doesn't mean it's necessarily fine now. You know, things have changed quite a bit. I think kids still do that. It depends on where they grow up, depends on the neighborhood. But back in my day, it was very common. Like, you would just wake up, you would just fucking go out. You say, hey, Mom, I'm leaving. I'm going to go to my friends down the road. And you just walk. And you just go. And you didn't have that was a crazy thing. It's weird thinking about it now, thinking about not having communication devices to update or anything like that. We didn't have that at all. We had to be within earshot. So if they came outside and they started to yell, we'd at least hear them. You know, we'd at least hear them be like, fuck, okay, I'm about to get my ass beat if I don't go back home right now. Or they would give us expectations. They would give us clear-cut expectations on what to do. They say, hey, if you go past that light pole over there, you can go to your friends. If you go past that light pole over there, I'm whooping your motherfucking ass. And that was it. That was the expectation. You don't go past the light pole. Because if I go past that light pole, you know what's going to happen. One day, I went past that light pole. You know what happened, chat? You know what happened? I got my motherfucking ass whooped. That's right, boy. I got my ass whooped, bro. You know, I'm sure those things exist now, but especially parents growing up or parents that are raising kids now, I definitely see this divide of like not even being overprotective. It's just we kind of understand what threats are kind of looming out there. So not only the desire for kids to just go out and go explore, hang out with their friends, go into the woods, build a fort, all that type of shit doesn't exist as much. But kids just also, they do have more of that drive to just stay inside. I'm kind of a bridge between both of those worlds because there are some days where I did go out and explore, but I was also a kid that's kind of like the newer generation of kids growing up. That's what I just see like a reflection of myself, where I was this fat, overweight kid that just stayed inside, gooning, playing fucking video games most of the time. But yeah, all right.
You rode bikes through the neighborhood without helmets or supervision. Scraped knees and muddy clothes weren't emergencies. They were badges of honor, proving you'd actually lived that day. According to research,
they were not badges of fucking honor. You scraped your knee and you were crying like a little bitch.
Search on 90s childhood, kids spent an average of 3 to 4 hours outside daily. Today, less than 30 minutes. A 2023 WHO study found that over 80% of today's adolescents don't meet recommended physical activity levels. But you were the last generation that experienced unstructured outdoor play as the default, not the exception. You didn't need fancy toys. A stick became a sword. An empty lot became a battlefield. Your backyard transformed into...
Yeah, but also think about... See, I hear this and we start to glamorize what it was like to grow up. And we can glamorize the characteristics that it instilled within us. But it sounds corny as fuck. Think about it this way. Think about for example, like our grandparents, our grandparents grew up in like the 20s and 30s, and they're like, we had these were our toys, and it's just like this wooden fucking like dowel rod or something like that, and they're like, this was the best toy ever. This was my favorite car growing up. And it's just like, okay, damn man, you don't know what an Xbox is? That's crazy. So we can glamorize the character traits that shape, or the things that shaped our character traits. That's cool. But this whole shit's just kind of corny. It's just like, hey, we had, so his stick was a sword. Or I see people post that on Facebook too. They're like, you know, if you know, and it's just a picture of a stick. It's just like that's a really, everybody's commenting saying that's a good gun right there. You know, it's fucking dumb, bro. I don't know. I think it's corny. Maybe I'm just more of a nihilist, whatever it comes to it, but I do think that type of shit is corny.
Whatever your imagination needed it to be. And because you couldn't Google what to do when bored, you developed something rare, creativity born from emptiness, the ability to generate fun from nothing. But here's where it gets complicated. You didn't just grow up and
Imaginative play. Yeah, I mean, it's imaginative play and, or imaginative, yeah. Imagine, I cannot fucking talk today. Imagination play. Kids still do this, believe it or not. Kids still have imagination play, or imaginative play. They still do this. It's very common. I'm back. Welcome back, Roush. We're talking about the 90s and how it cringes me out. Millennials piss me off. Kind of, sort of, in a way. Anyhow, kids still have imaginative play. They absolutely do. This didn't disappear at all. It's just a little bit different now, as far as the media that we interact with, or the media that they interact with. Still exists, is still around, whatever.
analog. You lived through the transition. You remember VHS tapes and rewinding them before returning to Blockbuster. But you also remember when DVDs felt like magic. You used dial-up internet where a single web page took 5 minutes to load. But by high school...
God, and that is true. Kids will never have to live through that bullshit of dial-up. Holy fuck, dial-up sucked ass. If you know, you know, but dial-up was absolute trash. But also, like, the age of dial-up was kind of fun because all of a sudden I had access to people that I've never had before, and I got to see that there were a lot more people in existence than I actually even knew. I remember being about 10 or 11 or so. Maybe, no, I'd say 2001, 2002 is whenever I first started to kind of fuck around with dial-up. And I remember being in AIM chat rooms. I'm like, man, there's this many people that exist in the world. This is crazy. Now it's like we're completely disillusioned. We know.
School, you had broadband. You typed school papers on actual typewriters in elementary school.
I ain't fucking do that. Who the fuck did that? We worked on Mac PCs and shit like that. I don't know what you're talking about.
By middle school, you were using Word documents. According to researchers, 90s babies experienced a unique blend of traditional education and the beginning of tech-based learning. You spent hours in libraries using card catalogs and encyclopedias. But
this shit was fucking frustrating because we had computers. We go to fucking Ask Jeeves. We have fucking computers. And they're like, you need to look through this here, this cardstock file. Shit was so frustrating. This is another thing that pisses me off because I see it happening right now, especially with the implementation of AI. We get so fucking narrow focused on certain aspects of like, it needs to be this way and this is the traditional way. Things change. They always fucking change. People change. I'm not the same person I am today that I was whenever I was 16. And gladly so. Not only that, but like our situations change, the technology that we use change, all these things change, and they are supposed to. I feel like that's always the rhythm of life. But holy shit. Back then, this was so frustrating because people were so anti like moving into the technological age. They pushed back on everything. You can't have calculators. You're never going to have a calculator around. You don't need to look it up on a computer. You need to learn how to browse an encyclopedia. I learned how to browse an encyclopedia for that one fucking year that was a requirement for me to learn. Never have I picked up an encyclopedia after that. Why the fuck do I have to? This was the biggest frustrating thing about growing up in that shift. And I do believe that kids are going through that same shift now with AI. Even with colleges and universities, they're completely anti AI, and you can't do. But they're setting their future graduates up for failure by not leaning into where the technological swing is going. They just are, because eventually this thing is going to become so widespread. There's like one university that I know that completely allows AI into their coursework because they realize they're like, fuck, this is the new thing with calculators. We don't want to be wrong twice because we told these kids growing up that they were dumb shits for relying on a calculator. They needed to prove all their work. And you see what I'm saying? Like, instead of leaning into it, we didn't lean into it, or the older folks back then didn't lean into it because I guess they see something like this and they can't fathom the possibilities of it, so they're resistant.
But you were also the first generation to use computers in school regularly. You're bilingual in a way no generation before or after will ever be. Analog native, digital.
That's also true, man. The mouse and keyboard meta. There are so many kids growing up that do not understand or know how to use a mouse and keyboard. That's fucking weird because I thought that was gonna be commonplace. Mouse and keyboard. I thought this shit was gonna be standard, but apparently not, because the factor, like the default go-to are touchscreens. So there are a lot of younger kids that see this shit and they're like, how do you use this? They don't know how to use it. They're illiterate to using a mouse and keyboard. So I don't know what the technological like solution for that to be down the road is. You know, I have no idea, but I did see that and I was extremely fucking shocked. That was pretty wild to me.
Fluent. And social media? You remember life before it. You had actual privacy. When you did something embarrassing, only the people there knew about it. No
That's
phones
also true.
filming, no viral videos, no permanent digital record of your worst moments.
Okay, This is facts. This is facts. There was a lot more grace for us growing up to do stupid shit and grow from that stupid shit. There is a lot less grace available for those nowadays. As far as worldly grace, I'm not talking about heavenly grace because it's different. Whatever. This isn't one of those videos. But it is true. We had a lot more grace growing up doing stupid shit. Because there just wasn't footage everywhere all the time. There wasn't short form content being posted everywhere all the time. This, for example, I'll tell you a story. I remember telling a kid, I was working in a truck, I was training him. I told him the story and he was like, how did you guys not end up in jail? I'm like, you know what? Good question. We just didn't have evidence of it. And people back then had much more different sense of humor than they do now. So a lot of it people just kind of swept it under the rug. They're like, that was funny. All right, now fuck off. But bro, yeah, we used to do all kinds of stupid shit. So to say the younger generation is like, they're fucking idiots. We were idiots too. We just don't have fucking proof of it anymore. We were just as much idiots. For example, one of my friends, I'm not going to say who, we went to a Subway that was near my house one time, and this was the most unhinged person that I just fucking know. He just was very unhinged. And would just do the most random shit, and it would be very, very fucking funny. And we went to a Subway, and they used to have these little things that you'd slide your tray across. Well, we went to go order some sandwiches, and he just whips his fucking junk out and just sets it on the little thing and just like was sliding across the entire fucking bar while he was ordering a sandwich. And everybody, the people there were fucking trying their best not to laugh. They were cracking the hell up. We were all cracking the hell up. And we left, and that was that. We decided not to fuck with them anymore because, you know, that one time was enough. But yeah, even stuff like that, it's just like, no, that would have been on like 4 different fucking like cell phones, and more than likely it would have been, I'm pressing charges and this is being posted on TikTok and you're getting fucking arrested. That shit does not exist. Like, we got away with shit. We got away with so much shit that doesn't exist hardly at all anymore. It's always going to be posted.
190s baby put it perfectly. We all talked crazy amounts of shit about each other and did shockingly inappropriate things. But we never had to worry about it ending up where everyone could see it.
Oh, dude, I remember I remember this bitch. One time, chat. This one bitch, this old lady bitch, man. She used to harass us all the fucking time. She used to piss us off. And I remember one night, like my brother and all them went over there and just started taking massive shits on her patio furniture. On her patio furniture. Just started shitting on her patio furniture. I don't know why. So to say that the younger generation is too unhinged or anything, no, we just see evidence of it. We did not have evidence of our stupid shit. We used to go streaking a lot. Like, we used to do all that. Skip school, go to the mountains, fuck off at the mountains for 6 hours, and then come back home like nothing happened. We just didn't have evidence of us doing these things, or else the older generation would have been saying the same thing about us. So every time I see this, I'm just like, y'all are a bunch of idiots. Like, we did the same thing. How are you all of a sudden now virtue signaling like you're any better?
You got to figure out who you were in private. That's a luxury that will never exist again.
That is very
MySpace
true.
launched when you were a teenager. Facebook opened to everyone when you were in high school or college. Instagram
MySpace was better than Facebook. The only reason I'm not, this sounds like a boomer take, but MySpace was better than Facebook. And the reason being is because MySpace existed at such a time to where our parents did not understand social media. So therefore they did not have it. So on social media, it's MySpace exclusively, people posted what they wanted to post, and they did not have to curate or be an alternate version of themselves or a buttoned up version of themselves while other eyes were watching, essentially. So yes, yeah, MySpace was better only for that. But as soon as Facebook came around, parents started jumping on Facebook. Then it was just like, the appeal just kind of lost itself, is what it is.
appeared as you entered adulthood. You learned to curate yourself, to perform your life for an audience, to seek validation through likes and comments. And that shift, it split your psychology in half. Here's what researchers noticed. 90s babies experience unusually intense nostalgia. They call it 90s kids syndrome.
You've already
it's
said
not just
this.
sentimentality.
You
It's
already said this.
neurological. According to studies on psychological essentialism, people tend to believe their personal experiences are more authentic than others. And 90s babies, they lived through a fundamental shift. They
See,
witnessed
that's where I'm just like, no, to me, it's like, oh, we're not no, we're all this fucking same. We're all the same. We're not unique. You're not some, I don't know. I was going to say godsend, but whatever. Like, we're all the fucking same. We're all degenerate. We're all this, we're all that. We only have slight deviations in that source code, basically.
the death of one world and the birth of another. So when they look back, they're not just remembering their childhood. They're mourning an entire way of life that disappeared. The rosy retrospection bias explains why you idealize the past. Your brain filters out the mundane and distressing parts and preserves the emotional highs.
I mean, that is true. Like, there is a certain point to where that reality of being unplugged, yeah, that's never going to be a thing ever, unless like we have a generational wipe and God decides to reset the servers. Like, we're never going to experience that again. But that's always been happening. I want think about whenever like Morse code was Morse code, or the shit they use for Morse code, whatever. Telegraph. Wait, what the fuck is it called? I can't even think of it. Whatever. That's besides the point. But people started speaking in Morse on the little beep, 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 beep. I can't even fucking think of it. I wonder how many people were up in arms over that. Be like, that's fucking great. Life will never be the same. You guys need to learn how to just send the mail. You need to write a handmade letter. I feel like this has always happened and will always happen. And at that point, they're probably like, we're never going to go back to whenever people just walk down the road to talk to their neighbor. We're never going to do that. So I do feel as if that's something that always happens. It's always going to happen. We're always going to have these shifts. And now, and like I said earlier within this video, this generation is now seeing that with the rise of AI. From human-made content to generated content, they're now stepping into a new paradigm. There's a new paradigm shift. They're now stepping into another world that they can't go back to. because they witnessed human effort creating all this other stuff, and now they have dawned, and there's a new dawn, there's a new paradigm, and now they are living in an area that's completely, you don't know. A lot of creativity's kind of died. There's gonna be a lot more. Yeah, that is what it is. I'm doing more on that in a video that I'm currently working on.
It's not that the 90s were perfect. You just remember them that way. Because what you're actually...
90s were not fucking perfect. You know how fucking frustrating it was to rewind a fucking VHS? Crazy.
Missing isn't the decade. It's the feeling. Being fully present without constant comparison. Living without performing. Existing without documenting. One researcher described 90s kids perfectly. They are the living testimony endorsing the fall of antiquity and the rise of modernity. You're the only generation that can compare both worlds accurately. You know what was gained. You also know what was lost. Here's the part that's harder to talk about. A study from the University of California, analyzing over 27,500 adults, found something devastating.
Well, they found
people born in the 90s have worse mental health than any previous generation. Depression, anxiety, and other mental disorders are significantly higher among...
And why is that? Why is that? I don't know. Is there a correlation?
Babies,
you gonna tell me?
Compared to those born in the 80s. And these disorders get progressively worse with age. The researchers concluded that technology and social media use are primary factors. But
would they not be running into the same issues like 80s kids? Wouldn't 80s kids be going through the same thing? How is this exclusive to the 90s kids? Makes no fucking sense to me. This sounds like an AI slop video. But I'm still watching it because there is it's helped me talk about some stuff. Some things I'd like to talk about because I do think that it is cringe sometimes for the millennial rose tinted glasses, excuse me. I do think it's a little bit cringe.
It's more than that. You were raised with one set of values. Emotions and sentiments controlled us, as one researcher put it. Then, forced to adapt to a world where devices dominate everything. You learned that friendships were built through shared experiences. Then you watched social media turn connection into performance. You developed self-worth through actual accomplishments.
That is fair. So I was talking to this friend at work. She was mentioning about her, she's telling me about a date that she went on, and she's having these issues. Like, she doesn't know how to talk. Like, she doesn't know how to have or contrive moments to where people can just talk naturally about life or have deep conversations just about life in general. And this is a skill. This is something that I think is a skill that you build, but how do you contrive that in a landscape to where it's not a skill that's required? Because it used to be a skill that was required. I remember many times like walking through neighborhoods with my friends at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and we're just talking about the universe. We're like, dude, that shit, you see that shit out there is crazy, man. Like, oh, dude, you can imagine like so many fucking stars, bro. Like, we used to have those conversations, and we would have these deep existential conversations about life and what we understood of the universe. And this younger generation does not have that skill. They don't know how to really cultivate it. And she was asking my advice on how to cultivate it, essentially. So that is something that sucks for the newer generation. That's my thing. Is like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, the 90s was the best. The 90s was the best. I'm far more superior. No, it's just like, I see the newer generation. I see what they're struggling with. And I'm not going to disparage where they're kind of coming from. You know, I'm not going to disparage how they're growing up. Now, I did have a video last week. It was like, Gen Z's morals are fucked. And I was just talking shit. But if you watch the video, it's more of like, you know, I'm still empathizing with them to a certain amount. But yeah, with these guys, I hear that and I'm like, man, that does suck, because it was a skill. And how do you build that skill now that is no longer necessary? So yeah, I can only imagine being in that position in this day and age.
Then you entered a world where value is measured in followers and likes. That cognitive dissonance creates psychological strain. You're not depressed because you're weak. You're exhausted because you're living in two incompatible realities simultaneously. But here's what 90s babies have that other generations don't: perspective. You know what life was like without constant connectivity, so you can put your phone...
So they're acting like this connectivity is not a choice. It's a convenience. It is a convenience to be this disconnected, it is a choice. You can. In all aspects, you can live completely off the grid. That is a choice that you can make. Now, for some people, it's going to be way harder to live off the grid than others. You can be completely disconnected if you want, if that's the life that you want. Now, you might have to plan for it now, and you might have to put in some effort on the back end now and remain kind of plugged in now, but not always. If you really want to live off grid, you really can. You don't have to do it. Like, you can still pay all of your bills by phone, by mail, whatever. You can do all that. You can have a checkbook and balance that bitch out. You can do all that. But as far as being on social media, all this other shit, it's not a requirement. This video makes it sound like it is something that we're now, like, we're shackled to. You don't have to do none of that. You don't have to do none of that. You don't have to. Now, for the younger generation, and that's the reason why, like, looking at it from my age, you don't have to. From the younger generation, that is all they know, and that does feel like a requirement. It's not a requirement, homie.
Down at dinner. Take tech-free vacations. Sleep without checking devices, because you remember what presence actually feels like. You value authenticity over performance because you developed identity before audiences existed. You understand patience because you waited for things, for songs to download, for photos to develop.
That's very true. That is something that I wish I could help, especially in the field that I have experience in. That's something that I absolutely wish I could help, is delayed gratification. The disappearance of delayed gratification has done so fucking much psychological damage to kids nowadays. That has caused so much damage. I am a firm believer, and I'm sure we could run studies and we'd find that that is just factual. Because, dude, kids being able to tolerate denied access, people go into very violent outbursts because everything's not instant. I wouldn't even say that they can't even tolerate denied access. They can barely tolerate delayed access. That shit has caused a lot of damage. And how we kind of move forward with that understanding, that's I don't know. I don't know how you address it. Because everything's on demand. Everything has to be now. But yeah, this is a skill that us kids that are now in their 30s, we did grow up understanding delayed gratification, delayed access. Even with Netflix, fucking people don't remember. You used to have to order shit off of Netflix, and they used to have to send it in the mail in a fucking bubble mailer, and you'd rent it for like 3 days. Then you had to mail that shit fucking back. But you would have to strategize when you were going to place the order, so you could get it by the weekend. If you were having people over or something, like, you had to strategize, and plan in for that delayed gratification. Like, you had to plan these things. Yeah, dude, that's something that was a skill. Like, you could be a little bit more patient with things. We don't any longer have that. And maybe it's not even necessary. Maybe it's not a necessary skill moving forward. No, fuck that. It is a necessary skill. And the reason why it's necessary is within relationships, within dating, within, friendships, building those relationships, understanding somebody, bonding, pairing, all of these things are not instant. That's the one thing that we cannot change. We cannot change how we bond with people. Those things are not instant. Marriages are not instant. Marriages are a constant back and forth of one person surrendering to the other and learning them and understanding them and working on their level. And that is something that, yeah, okay, I was about to say maybe it wouldn't. No. It absolutely is a skill that's necessary. So how the fuck do we do that? How do we do that? How do we solve that problem? I don't fucking know.
For your favorite show to air at its scheduled time, you learned delayed gratification wasn't just acceptable, it was normal. You have what researchers call a balanced childhood that straddled
shut the fuck up. This video is just glazing millennials or glazing 90s babies. It is sickening. We don't need to be glazed.
Line between analog and digital worlds. You climbed trees and coded websites. You played tag and played video games. You read books and browsed the early internet.
Books are actually making a comeback. People are reading more books now. People are now reading more books. Pretty crazy.
That balance is rare and it's valuable. Today, 90s babies are in their mid-20s to mid-30s. You're contributing to society in significant ways. You bring traditional values and technological fluency. You translate between generations at work.
That is true. We do translate between generations. And that's kind of good to have. That's all right. But still, I don't like all this fucking 90s babies glazing. I was born in 1990. Is what it is. But I'm not going to be like, you are a monolith. You are this and that. Shut the fuck up. I don't care.
Your boomer parents and your Gen Alpha kids. You're the mediators, the explainers, the ones who remember both before and after. Here's what nobody tells you about being a 90s baby. You'll spend your life caught between nostalgia and adaptation. You'll watch younger generations grow up completely digital and feel both envious and relieved they'll never know what they're missing. You'll hear older generations romanticize the good old days and think, I actually remember those days. They weren't that simple. You're not better than other generations. You're different, shaped by timing.
Yeah, okay. So this is a little bit better. I didn't like the whole glazing. But yeah, I mean, I already kind of talked about
By being born at the exact moment when the old world was ending and the new one was beginning. You carry both. You belong fully to neither. And maybe that's not weakness. Maybe that's wisdom. You see what younger generations lost. You understand what older generations can't grasp. You hold both truths without needing to pick a side. The world changed while you were growing up, and instead of breaking you, it made you adaptable, resilient, aware. You're not confused.
That's true, but I'm not going to be completely nihilistic and not realize that these younger generations that are growing up can grow up with some insanely critical and important skills, you know. So not to say we are the best generation, because we're fucking not. We're not. We got to live pre 9/11. That was kind of cool, you know, before the Twin Towers went down. It is pretty funny now to talk to people at work, the young folks at work, and they're like, oh my God, you remember 9/11? Ew. Like, shut the oh my God. That was the cleanest insult I think I ever heard in my fucking life. It's like, you remember 9/11? Ew. It's pretty sad, man. Pretty fucking crazy.
Confused about who you are. You're just the only generation that remembers both worlds clearly enough to compare them honestly. If this felt personal, if you've been carrying this nostalgia and didn't know why, you're not alone. This channel explores the psychology of people caught between worlds. Subscribe to understand the patterns shaping who you are. And if you're a 90s baby, drop your birth year in the comments.
What the fuck? Okay, sorry, this is unrelated to the video, but I just realized that did the subscribe button just highlight itself whenever it said subscribe?
Shaping who you are. And if you're a 90s baby, drop your birth year in the comments. Let's see who you are if people caught between worlds. Subscribe to understand the patterns shaping who you are.
It does?
And if you're a 90s baby...
See, YouTube's just a goat. It does small shit like that you would not catch Twitch doing. All right, sorry.
Drop your birth year in the comments.
I'm not dropping my birth year in the comments so you could data mine me, bitch.